This module has been developed for the Michigan Early Collaborative Project. The purpose of this module is to support Kindergarten Common Core Standard RFK 1A under Concepts of Print. The ability for children to understand how print works does not emerge magically and unaided. It must be explicitly taught and is necessary for children to learn how to read and write. When children are read to regularly, when they play with letters, engage in word games, and receive formal reading instruction, they begin to understand how the system of print functions. That is, print on a page is read from left to right and from top to bottom, front to back, and much, much more. As students participate in interactive reading with adults, children also learn about books, authors and illustrators' names, titles, tables of content, page numbers, and so on. They also learn about book handling, how to turn pages, how to find the top and bottom on a page, how to identify the front and back cover of a book, and so forth. As part of this learning, they begin to develop the very important concept word, that meaning is conveyed through words, that printed words are separated by spaces, and that some words in print look longer because they have more letters than other words. Left to right, top to bottom, and page-by-page progression is an important skill to focus on for kindergartners. Students need to develop these skills at the beginning of the year and throughout the year. Although we tend to focus on modeling reading from top to bottom and left to right in whole group or during a morning message, we also need to make sure we take the time to explicitly teach this skill to our students. Instead of just pointing it out to them, we need to make sure we are teaching lessons that show them how to do this appropriately. This lesson is especially important at the beginning of the year, as it teaches students the basic concept and gives them the foundational skills that they are going to need to simply pick up a book and attempt to read it. Teaching this lesson is recommended because a student may get lost or may not be engaged when you're just pointing things out in a whole or small group. This lesson involves each student in their learning process and allows them to see reading from top to bottom and left to right. This lesson, titled Which Way Do We Go?, focuses on the standard RFK 1A. The learning objective is students will be able to follow words from left to right, top to bottom, and page by page. For this lesson, the following materials are needed. A set of green and red stickers for each student. These can be colored circles or smiley faces. Red and green markers or crayons. One set of large green and red circles for the teacher use. Student name tags with their names printed on them. Hopefully, students already have these on their desks from the beginning of the school year. A whiteboard and a story of the teacher's choice. There is also a sight word worksheet and a simple story for additional practice. This lesson is intended to last 15 to 20 minutes. Before students complete this lesson, they should have a general understanding that when we read and write, we follow words from left to right, top to bottom, and front to back. These skills can be pre-taught in the morning message, read-alouds, and poems. At the beginning of each lesson, it is important to grab your students' attention and get them excited about what they are going to be learning next. For this lesson, you can choose a short, silly book of your choice and read it to the children. It will be helpful if you ask questions as you are reading the story, such as, where do I begin reading the story? Where should I begin reading the words? After reading the story, tell the students what they are going to be learning. Today, I am going to teach you a new strategy. You know how sometimes we get a little confused and end up writing our names backwards, or we end up reading a word backwards? Well, that happens to all of us, until we learn some tricks to help remind our brains. Today, I am going to show you an easy strategy that you can use in our classroom to remind you to always go from left to right and top to bottom. Make sure as you're saying this, you point from left to right and top to bottom. Before we begin the lesson, we are going to warm up our brains and practice. Have students raise their left hand, their right hand, and touch the top of their head and the bottom of their toes. Before beginning the lesson, you will need to have a large green and red circle on the board or easel. Holding up the green circle, discuss with students that green means go and red means stop. When we read, we go on the left and stop on the right. Next, write a name or word on the board. Place the green circle before the word and the red circle at the end of the word. Make sure to explain that we begin reading words on the left and end reading a word on the right. Moving on to the next part of the lesson, the teacher will put up a copy from a page from a book or multiple sentences on the board. You should tell your students that most of the time when they are reading or writing, there are several words or sentences on a page. Placing a copy from a page from a book or multiple sentences on the board, tell your readers, when there are lots of words on a page, we go at the beginning of the sentence and then stop at the end of the sentence. We then move to the next sentence and do the same. When reading, we also have to start reading or go at the top of the page and then stop at the bottom of the page. It is now time to model the lesson to the students, showing what they will be expected to do to complete this lesson. First, place a student name tag on the board and say, "At your seats, each of you have your name tag. When you go to your seat, you are going to place a green sticker at the beginning of your name where you would go to begin reading. Next, you will place a red sticker at the end of your name where you will stop reading. I would then like you to say, this is where I go to read my name, and this is where I stop. My name is Johnny." Finally, I would like you to teach at least 2 neighbors your name by repeating, "This is where I go to read my name, and this is where I stop. My name is Johnny." The students should be ready to go and know what they need to do. It is time for students to return to their seats and complete the lesson. Students should be engaged in their work practicing the teaching point and teaching what they have seen demonstrated. As you walk around the room, you may ask one or more students to share or provide an example that illustrates the teaching point. It is now time to wrap up the lesson. You may want to select a few students to share what they have just learned. Remind students that the stickers on the board and on their name tags at their seats are there to help us remember to go from left to right. We start at green on the left, we finish at red on the right. If you're forgetting where to start reading or writing, look at the stickers to help you. As a teacher, you can assess this task informally by walking around the classroom to make sure name tags have been properly marked and students are completing the worksheet correctly if given. Also, by really watching students as they read or write. While working in whole group and small groups, or while students are working independently, check to make sure their words are written in the correct direction and that they are sequential. This isn't really something that can be formally assessed, but it is something that can continually be looked for after expectations have been set. This lesson can be extended by teaching top to bottom and front to back. It can be taught at the same time as left to right or as a separate lesson. The Sight Words worksheet can be used for extra practice. Students can use a green and red crayon or marker to show left to right. For differentiated instruction, students can also use the provided short story to show where they begin reading and end reading the sentences as well as top to bottom. After completing this lesson, there are several resources provided that give students the opportunity to continue practicing and mastering this standard.